What was the greatest length you went to just to duck with someone? Not a super long process, but more effort than I usually take to duck with someone. As a young boy with an older brother who always tried scaring me or beating on me, I often thought of ways to duck with him indirectly. So one day I had the bright idea to cut the top of his deodorant off and replace it with cream cheese. I had to sculpt it on to make it look like the deodorant and even poke the little hole in the middle to make it look as real as possible. Then it was time for the waiting game. I knew it had worked when he came in my room a couple days later and beat the it out of me. Worth it. For years one of my main business competitors was a d-bag with a ratty British accent that he thought was charming. The cunt would try to poach my employees every year at a big industry trade show. I finally had enough and decided to have some fun with him. I got a whole bunch of my friends and colleagues to act very shocked and surprised when they saw him at the conference. Whenever they would see him walk by, they would call out his name loudly, Marvin, not his real name. Obviously, I thought you were dead. I heard you had a heart attack last month, or last week, or a few days ago. Just ad-lib this bit. Then when he would ask where they heard it, they would always be vague. Your name came up in a conversation the other day and some guy, I don't know his name, I only see him here at these shows, told me you had passed suddenly. After 3 days of this, over and over, he was really getting pissy and wanted to know who had started the rumor. But his reaction got better every time it happened, and pretty soon people I didn't even know were having a go at him. From what I heard, 10 years later he still has people come up to him and go, Jesus, Marvin, you're alive. If he knew it was me, he'd probably shoot me. Duck you, Marvin. I read an article about how some dude spent less than $2 on targeted ads on Facebook just to duck with his roommate. Gimme a sec to find it. Edit. Here. Double edit. For those of you who use Alien Blue, the link should work properly now. Why the duck do you use Alien Blue? I replaced a colleague's desk with a small pink Disney princess dressing table, complete with working computer. One of my best friends in college. He was in a single room. I had a spare key. When he was in class, I went and carefully lined up glitter on top of the fan. Red, blue, green and yellow. Like 4 huge lines of coke on each blade of the fan. He comes back to the room. Switches on the fan. Money shot. Farted multicolored glitter for the next 3 months. His boxers were shiny and his clothes fabulous. He would shower twice only to show up to class with glitter on his face like a gay vampire in the sunlight for a long time. D. Took it in the roommate's cat's litter box. He never changed it, and after that his cat stopped using it, so I was like, you need to change that soon. He smelled my it for like a week straight, and then he was astonished at the size. He still tells people about the time his cat took a massive it. People who are saying that I'm copying a story has obviously not read all the comments, because way more people have it in litter boxes than I could ever have imagined. Also, thank you for the gold. It truly made my day. My stepbrother is a master prankster. My personal favorite is when he ducked with his uncle by sending him Christmas cards from a made-up couple with photos he found on the internet. Hope you and the kids are doing well. ETC love Bill and Amy. He also included details only someone close to the family would know, and even had his friend stop by their house when their son was playing outside and asked him to tell his dad that Bill stopped by. It got to the point where it was driving the uncle insane. He had no idea who this mystery couple was, because they didn't exist. In college, I sat down by my friend who was studying one day. Noticed she had placed her keys on the table beside her and wasn't paying attention. She was going to be there for a while, so I grabbed her keys when she wasn't looking. We had a small hardware store just off campus, less than 2 minutes walk from where we were. Made like I was going to get a soda, ran to the hardware store and had them make a copy of her car key. Then I returned her keys to her unnoticed. For the rest of the year, whenever I passed by her car and knew she wasn't nearby, I would move the car over several spaces or turn it around in the parking spot. She really thought she was going crazy. Roommates and I set all the clocks forward an hour. Every single clock in the house, including the VCR. Our one buddy got up at 5 AM instead of 6 and went to work an hour early. At about 8 AM, we got a text. You guys are assholes. Edit. For the 30 or so people who were asking why he didn't just check his phone. This was in the early 2000s. All you had to do was flip the phone open and you could change the clock. Maybe some of you were just kids back then. You also had to press 7 4 times to get a letter S. It was itty times. I've held an Irish accent for the past 5 years of college. As an older student, almost 30, I thought it would be kinda funny. But now as far as everybody that I have classes with thinks I'm Irish. I'm in a fairly small major, so we only have about 5 professors who all know me fairly well, and the student pool is small also, so for those that don't know, can't remember my name, I'm just referred to as the Irish guy. However, as I'm about a semester away from graduation, I've been dropping the accent and talking in my normal one, and I can tell it's starting make people do a double take from time to time. Edit. After a few requests, I recorded a sound clip of me reading. Audio isn't the best as I'm in a parked car. But here it is. Back in AOL Instant Messenger days, I pranked a buddy of mine. Created a new AIM account and screen name. One that I wouldn't be tied to. Then I started messaging his account while running my own AIM in a different instance. Meaning me and my prank account were both online. I made sure that when I typed using the prank account to have different tone of speech and different personality altogether really. He began messaging me that this weird dude has been talking to him. This began an over hour-long session of him being suspicious, me trying to look up information on his screen name, and he even had me try messaging him as well. Eventually it all grew and culminated into a party chat with me, my prank self, and him. Me and him basically arguing with prank me over prank me, saying I was going to hack his PC. When enough was enough and the time was right, I started parroting everything the prank account said. He got confused, and then I started typing part of one sentence with prank account, and finishing it with mine. When he caught on, he facepalmed straight through the earth and into China. A friend of mine, who is the polar opposite of his older brother when it comes to politics, started trolling his brother on the internet for fun. This began pretty much at dawn of the internetos and he's never stopped. From the time his brother started posting in the early 90s on message boards up through today, he has encountered the most virulent opposition to everything he says. Often, the oppositional posters will use his own words against him, pulling quotes from his posts that are years old, from message boards that don't even exist anymore. My friend just copies and saves his posts as he goes, says it's easy, kind of like his hobby. The brother has gotten freaked out and changed usernames several times. But my friend always finds him again, usually by simply asking his brother what his new username is, and picks it right back up. This has been going on for over 20 years. So, his brother is trapped in this epic, lifelong, deeply personal flame war online, and doesn't realize that his archenemy is also his kid's godparent. It's just so twisted. Misread the title as the greatest length you went to just to duck someone. Came here looking for different kind of stories. My best friend was living in Berlin for 6 months during an internship. While he was away, I visited him once. I live in NL and was 16, so I couldn't afford to go more often. When I got back, I started a rumor that he had gotten really fat from eating curry sausage. Every time the trip or the friend came up in conversation, I would sneak it in somehow. Even weeks after he came back, the first thing people would say when they saw him again was, "Hey, you're not as fat as I thought you'd be." I had a friend who was super addicted to Assassin's Creed, and who also didn't know much about computers. So me, being the 16-year-old with lots of time, created this web page and got a friend to send it to him. Because he didn't know what WordPress was, he believed it. Then, I wrote on that page that there was a leak, but that you should not, under any circumstances, download it, because unfinished he sees this, and immediately calls me, pure imbalance. Have you seen what they said? I played it oblivious, let him show me, and he begged me for all that's worth to get him that leaked content. This was all according to my grand master plan. I got another friend into the boat, and from some hacker forums and toolkits, we created a virus that would essentially give us remote control over his PC. We put that into a cracked version of Assassin's Creed II, uploaded it and got him the download link. He installed it, and we were Skyping with him as he loaded it up. What followed was my friend and me continuously opening and closing the CD drive of his PC, and then muting our microphone because we were laughing so hard about him getting mad at the CD drive popping up every 2 minutes or so. No prank of mine comes close to this one. Edit. I would like to kindly thank the anonymous stranger for gilding my post, even though I have yet to find out what exactly it does, aside from super liking it. I am glad I could brighten your day, just as you did with mine. In college, my friends and I made another friend's door completely disappear while he was out taking a final. The whole process included removing the door framing, installing new drywall over the door, installing new paneling, new wall texture with spackle to match existing, installing trim to match the surrounding, and painting everything to match. We had most of the supplies laying around, so we didn't have to go to great lengths monetarily, but we put a lot of effort in over the course of 30-45 minutes to make it all as complete as possible. Proof. Edit. Since I didn't really finish the story, he didn't take the joke too well. He kind of flipped his lid and smashed through it right away, wet spackle and all. No pics of the reaction unfortunately. We were too busy laughing our asses off in the next room. Also, this was our fraternity house in which we could do pretty much whatever we wanted, with a complete lack of accountability and an abundance of materials. You can come up with some pretty great ways to duck with your friends. Edit 2. Thanks for my first gold kind stranger. In retaliation for a prank played upon on one of my group of friends at the time by the landlord of a pub, owner of a bar for US folks, we systematically stole glasses from the bar over a period of several months. Just a few now and then. It was a big place, so not really enough to be noticed amongst the usual losses and breakages. The number of glasses soon mounted and there were over 300 by the time we returned them all surreptitiously on one night. They had beer swilled in them to make them look used and were placed on various tables around the place. I am assured that there was much puzzlement and it was most amusing at the end of the night when the staff attempted to put the glasses away. My dad is a caretaker for old people in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He was doing work in an old Catholic monastery with really elderly monks and my brother and I were there at work with him. One of the monks was deaf in one ear and I would realistically meow like a cat for hours. He could never tell what direction it was coming from. Meow. Hello? Meow. Meow. WHO is that hello? Mew. God damn it. So, this will get buried and no one will see it. But here we go. Where I work, we use ID cards to log into our computers. As a custom in the shop, if someone leaves their card overnight we take it and do something with it. Usually it's tape it somewhere in the office or freeze it in a block of ice. I got bored with the usual games so I decided to up the ante. One coworker, we will call Jeff, left his card one night so I made a scavenger hunt with riddles to the next clue that led him around the office and across the building, even out across the quarter-mile long parking lot. The whole shop got in on the action to help Jeff find his card. A few weeks later Jeff leaves his card again while he is out of town for a week. How I would have figured running around the building solving riddles like a child would have taught Jeff a lesson. But no, now I have to step up my game. It took me the whole week to come up with a plan and make it happen. My first stop was to FedEx to use their copiers. I talked to the manager and explained my plan. After taking a moment to laugh, he says that they aren't allowed make color copies of IDs, but I can use the copier to do so myself. He even goes to the back and finds some high quality shiny photo paper for me to use. So, I scan and print a copy of my ID. Next I cut out the copy and glued it onto Jeff's card. Then just to make it look right I used a screen cover for a phone to give it the right gloss look. Jeff was due back in the office Monday morning, so Friday night before I left I stuck my card in the card reader and went home. On a side note, I have never left my card at work, so the guys have been waiting for it for years. Monday afternoon, I work swing shift. I come into the office and the team comes out to greet me. Jeff presents me with a block of ice with my ID in it. I look at it, grin, walk over to my desk and log in with my ID. Then Jeff finally realizes where his card is, yells out, "Goddamn IT, Viorin." The rest of the shop is dumbstruck and vows not to get on my bad side. TLDR, I tricked a co-worker to freeze his own ID card into a block of ice. My roommate and I worked for a tech business and we were trying from one side to another when someone interested in going our way started to pull in the median lane. This was very typical, but I would have never thought about it. However, my roommate in the passenger seat pointed at the car and screamed. I looked and the car was going to broadside me and I swerved away. Of course, the guy was just going into the median lane and never would have hit me. My roommate's laughter turned into chuckles and he said, "Man, you should have seen the look on your face." I called him a D because I actually swerved and could have hit someone. Later that night we are driving up to North Georgia, which is a good 50-60 minutes away. My roommate is asleep in the passenger seat. I had been pondering a good way to get back at my roommate. There was a truck stop coming up with a bunch of parked trucks. I pulled into the truck stop as fast with the largest turns possible not to tip him off. I turned towards the truck and was going about 30 miles per hour when I slam on the brakes and skid toward the truck and I scream, "Ah!" at the top of my lungs. Roommate popped up and screamed bloody murder. When we stopped far short of the truck, he realized we weren't going to die and just goes off on me how he could have had a heart attack and died. We pull up to the convenience store and he came back and said, "You owe me $5. Apparently he hit himself and bought a pack of briefs at truck stop store. Best money ever spent. This is probably way too late to be seen, but here it goes. I was eating dinner with some friends at Jerry's Deli. When we're leaving, I need to go to the bathroom. I get outside and they're in the car, jokingly yell at me, and drive off without me. Instead of sticking around waiting for them, I decide to go hide. So I hide in bushes behind the parking lot. They circle back after 5 minutes and start looking for me. I'm getting repeated phone calls and texts from both of them wondering where I am. I start walking back to my friend's house as they are looking for me, which was a 5-minute walk away from the restaurant. As I'm walking back, I noticed they had given up looking for me and were circling back to his house. I hid in the bushes and watched them circle back. So a couple minutes later I make it to his house. I walk up the driveway and there is my buddy's car. So I hop in the back seat and start getting calls again. I don't answer. So my friend, I guess, decided to go for round number 2 of trying to find Pip the Minky. Maybe he felt a tinge of regret at having left me stranded. So he's calling me as he leaves his house. Again, I'm crouching in his back seat. He walks around the car and miraculously doesn't notice me in the back seat. He opens the driver door, gets in, closes the door, puts on his seatbelt when I let out the loudest scream that has ever come from my vocal cords directly into the back of his head. I've never seen anybody so terrified in their entire life. He pissed his pants in terror. I was never left at a restaurant again. Me and 3 other guys were part of a cleanup crew at a beef packing plant back in the 70s. We decided like idiots to do some acid and make work a lot more fun. While they were off cleaning another area, I took a cow's head that had been cleaned of most of the meat and managed to make an opening big enough to put it on over my head. When they came back, I hid behind a meat locker and ran at them screaming "MOOOOO" when they walked by. I don't think I ever laughed so hard in my life watching them trying to run away on that slippery floor. They looked like 2 cartoon dogs stuck in place. I catfished a coworker. He was kind of a douche and would talk about how many girls he was sleeping with. Nobody believed him. He went to a party the previous night and got hammered drunk. He didn't have my number, so I texted him pretending to be a girl he met at the party, telling him how handsome and interesting he was. He didn't quite remember me, so I described a girl that was at the party, but whom he didn't know. I couldn't look him in the face without laughing, so I did some work in the back storage room. For the next hour, he would run up to me to tell me what this girl he didn't remember was telling him. After him bugging me for a picture, I sent him a picture of myself with a eating grin on my face. He was so mad. Even the grumpy managers thought it was hilarious. A friend of mine can get really bothered by small things, and sometimes I think of small and random things and just say them. We were playing StarCraft 2, in which there is a unit that gathers resources, whose name is Probe. I made a ton of that unit and just blurted out, "Did you know that Probe is Proibner in Norwegian?" Entirely false. Proibner doesn't even sound Norwegian. We're both Swedish and he should know that. He doesn't care much and doesn't really believe me either. Every time I see a probe, I call it Proibner. I keep doing this for a year. After a while I have infiltrated his mind. I've planted this seed that I can't be lying. Cause who the hell would lie for a year just to make a small joke? Little does he know, I ducking love small jokes. Then I just randomly told him that I had lied 1 year earlier. I just made it up to duck with him. He got so ducking mad. I'd been lying to him for a year just to make a small joke. Who the duck does that? He'd say quite a lot. Then every now and again when he saw a probe he'd go, oh there's a duck I'm probed, no you asshole. Needless to say, my weird little joke turned out better than expected. I'll just put these here and move along. And yes, totally worth it. When I was in college, there was a fraternity that gave all the other organizations on campus and the entire school a bad name. They were universally hated. After one particularly vile incident, my friends and I decided to get some well-earned revenge. We used my all-access door key, insert long story about poor security design, to enter the fraternity house at 4 AM, and proceeded to drain and clog every toilet. Then, we added powdered potassium iodide, or maybe it was manganese dioxide, I wasn't the chem guy, to the bowls, and replaced the water in the tank with 30% hydrogen peroxide and dish soap. Finally, we left a big plate of X-Lax brownies on their dining table, with a note thanks from the girls at Tree Delt. If you don't fully understand the bit with the chemicals, imagine this: when you flush after heavy diarrhea. In college at one point I lived with 4 other guys and we were pranking each other a fair bit. I had the idea to write up an official letter from the school saying that our roommate had been ordered to leave by the end of the day. We then proceeded to break into his room and pack up everything. We put all of it into a moving cart and left it near the front door with the letter in an envelope on top. Unfortunately, when he came back and found it, his brother was with him, which kinda made us feel bad, but the prank was still awesome. Sort of related, when I was in high school one of my friends, capital A, went to visit his home country, Bangladesh, over the summer. We hadn't heard anything from him, but we assumed he was fine and just without phone internet access. Summer ends, school starts again, and there's still no sign of him. Me and my friend, capital B, being the bright young scholars that we were, start posting on social media RIPA and several other similar updates. Before we knew it, Facebook pages were set up by uninvolved third parties, and his wall was filled with the typical "we will miss you" posts. We came up with a backstory to his death: died from drinking water that was tainted with feces. What started as a joke grew into a huge deal. People at school were crying. His extended family members believed it. We consoled people, wiped their tears, and faked our own. We just kept it going, even though we knew he'd eventually be back, and our asses skinned. The original plan was to go all out on this, rent a funeral parlor, buy a plain wood coffin, stuff it with helium-filled blow-up 6 doll, do a closed casket wake, and right as the coffin is being rolled away, lift the lid and theater. The iota of the moral compass my friend had stopped us from proceeding with this amazing plan. If not for that, we would have went ahead with it, at least until we inevitably found out we didn't have nearly enough money to execute the plan properly. He returned about 2 weeks later, and upon walking into school, many a brick was shat. By the time he got back, it had grown so much that no one could trace it back to BNY. TLDR, convinced guy's extended family and entire school that he was dead from drinking it water in his homeland. Edit, thanks for the gold, but it won't bring back my dear friend. I had a friend doing 30 days in county jail for his second DUI. I learned from a mutual friend, who was previously incarcerated for the same thing, that you can send inmates books if they are shipped directly from Amazon. I sent a number of male erotica books. I chose the books with the most colorful covers I could find. We had a friend in high school that we always loved to mess. Let's call him Alex. We were all really interested in lucid dreaming and talked about dreams a lot. So, one day me and my other friend decided to spend the whole day trying to convince Alex he was asleep. So when he first got to school we would say little things like, "Alex, are you okay? You look really tired, us almost asleep." We dropped little comments like that and would randomly say "wake up" at the end of our sentences. When he would question it we would pretend it wasn't happening. We were sophomores at this point and even got a random upperclassman that we didn't know to run into him in the hallway and say wake up and then walk away. Best of all was convincing Alex's history teacher, who was cool as duck, to ask him to stay after class. We explained to him what we were doing and he thought it was hilarious. He brought him over to his desk and said, "Alex, I'm concerned. Is everything okay? It's like you're not really here. Almost like you're at home in your bed or something." And then said, "I expect to see improvement next week." This freaked Alex out, and when he came to lunch he was visibly shaken up. We had a bunch of papers at our table and my friend wrote "wake up" in bold on one of the middle ones and was shuffling through them. Alex saw the note and he broke. He immediately got up and ran to the library. When we got there he was sitting in the corner all freaked out. At this point we felt bad, so we told him everything we did and apologized. He did not think it was funny. This seems like a good time to share mine. I went to a Catholic middle school, and we had a friend whose last name was Krasistan. So being the immature 7th graders that we were, we would constantly call him a Jew because of how his last name was spelled, and naturally he hated it. Urban Dictionary was huge at the time, so I thought it would be funny to submit his last name as Jew. To this day, it's the only Krasistan entry on Urban Dictionary. Writing the definition was immature. But what I think is funny is I have been upvoting this definition once every single day to get it to where it is now. 2,333 upvotes as I'm writing this. I hope to one day show him when it's at 10,000. I'm in college now and at this rate, I should be done in 20ish years. Edit. Laughing so hard, thanks for the help everyone. What took me 7 years took Reddit 24 hours. When I was living in my halls at university we realized that our bathroom had a service hatch which connected to next door's bathroom where some of our friends lived. Over the course of a week we figured out how to unlock the service hatch to their bathroom. Once we had done this we waited for a day when we knew we were all in and then sent one of us next door to keep them distracted under the instruction to send a text message when everyone next door was in the main communal area. As soon as we got the text we unlocked the service hatch. Someone jumped into the bathroom and locked the door from the inside to allow us time to unleash our planned out, which was to fill the room up with balloons. I think we must have left about 1,000 in there, to the point that the door locker guy struggled to get out and we worked at it for about 20 minutes. Once the room was filled we unlocked the bathroom door and then quickly locked the service hatch. About 5 minutes later we just hear screaming from the bathroom. Every so often for about a month we would just leave 10-15 balloons in there in the early hours of the morning so it would be a nice surprise for when they woke up. They found out after a month when one of us was drunk and gave the game away. For 2 years I've been telling my girlfriend that narwhals are photoshopped and don't actually exist, just to make her mad. She still thinks I don't believe in them. Not sure if this fits here, but I guess it's the longest I've ducked with someone. I've spent years on Reddit just waiting for that bastard to join and post something, and when he does, I'm gonna downvote it. Ha. I grew up with an alcoholic abusive father, so as a child I was always rebelling in sneaky little ways. One of my favorite ways of ducking with him was making him breakfast when he was hungover. This started when I was 9. The only thing I could make were Bisquick biscuits. So I'd make a batch but throw terrible it into his. I'd put tons of salt, pickle juice, bits of wet cat food, etc. The genius thing was that I'd make regular ones and bake them on the same sheet. So, they'd come out of the oven and I'd eat the 2 good biscuits straight off the tray. He'd grab the itty ones and eat them. He always made faces like they were terrible and ask me what was in them. And I'd look at him like he was crazy and say they were normal while I ate the secret good ones. He always thought it was because he was still so ducked up from the night before, so he'd just eat them with the most miserable expression on his face. TL. Doctor, this is how supervillains are made. I made a fake poker account acting like a hot female to get chips from rich men. I stopped after getting hit on so much and realizing what kind of monster I had become.